Jags and the Patriots live in London right now. It's the end of the third quarter, and, it's been an okay game. The Jags actually look pretty good, which, I should have probably predicted a little bit better because they've been in London for 2 weeks now, so they were kind of just chilling, and the Patriots had to travel all this way. So Drake May has done a little bit worse than I expected. I'm glad I didn't make him the start of the week at the quarterback position because I was tempted to. I was definitely really tempted to. The matchup, just by all accounts, was really, really excellent. And I'm glad I kind of didn't do that because it would have ended up being a really bad move. But obviously, we've got somebody like a Demario Douglas who I called a must start. And it has not looked very good so far. Demario Douglas, he's got a long way to go to recover what I thought he could do this week. He's got 2 catches for 14 yards, and I think like 2 more targets or something like that. So, long way to go. Long way to go for Demario Douglas here. But on the Jags side of the ball, the Jags actually have some players right now. The Jags are Lawrence has looked pretty good. Tank Bigsby, another start of the week, came through. He's already came through, and he's adding more to it. He's averaging 5.6 yards per carry. He's handling the majority of the backfield, man. I mean, he's been pretty great. Brian Thomas Jr. told a lot of people to play him, so he's looking good. Evan Ingram's doing fine at the tight end position, and no other wide receiver in Jacksonville is relevant other than Brian Thomas Jr. and Evan Ingram as well at the tight end position. So we're going to get into some Week 7 questions today. Obviously, Kenneth Walker's a big headline. He's active, going to be playing today. So, he's going to be fine. Is it a Jordan flu game, or is it going to be a Zach Charbonnet day with some Kenneth Walker sprinkled in there? I guess we'll find out. But let's get into some questions. All I ask from you this morning is to go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support if you haven't done so already. We'll start at the top. And we'll just work our way down. The best way to get your question answered immediately is to do a super chat. Dante DeMora, Kevin S, Choludo, what's going on, guys? Dante says, I got Bigsby. Yeah, Bigsby's been a stud today. Ryan Carew, what's going on? Whittington or Marvin Harrison Jr.? Definitely Marvin Harrison, yeah. Look, Whittington, obviously, today is going to be a major factor because Cooper Kupp is missing the game. Jordan Whittington, let's look really quick. Jordan Whittington, I just want to make sure that he's playing. Jordan Whittington. Trending towards playing is what I'm seeing from fantasy footballers. Shout out to them, by the way. I don't really shout out a ton, but they do a great job. I really like the fantasy footballers. So it looks like he's going to end up playing today. And again, he's going to be the starter by all accounts. It will be Jordan Whittington. Against the Raiders, I like it. Against the Chargers, I don't like it quite as much. Marv, to me, I just think I feel more comfortable playing Marvin. I think that he's just got he's got the better skill set, and I do trust that he goes off for big touchdown weeks. I don't think that Jordan Whittington has the ceiling that Marvin Harrison does, and that's a big factor for me. I always want to play for the ceiling, so I'd personally just rather go with Jordan Whittington myself. I'd rather go with Marvin Harrison myself. Choludo, Muth or Andrews? I would definitely go with Andrews. Yeah, Muth, I'll say this. Muth could be a sneaky play this week. Because Russ can't throw the ball down the field. Pickens is a must-sit. I have not changed that opinion. That will remain. Muth is actually a legit option, I think, because I don't think he's going to be able to throw the ball down the field. And I think there will be a lot of short targets for Muth. But at the same time, it's how much the upside does that bring you? I think Andrews definitely could have a good game against the Bucs tomorrow night. I really do think that Andrews has obviously been tough to play this year. If it's me, though, I'm playing Andrews because I just know with the Muth, unless he gets in the end zone, his upside is just not very high. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. Brian03, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Whittington or Ayuk? Also heard Kupp may be traded. Yeah, I did hear that too. We'll get into that second. Let's answer the start-sit question for the day, which is Whittington or Ayuk. I would go Whittington here. I think Whittington, his involvement this week will be high. Like I do truly believe that Whittington will be a really solid play, but just not I would make above like a Marvin, like I was just talking about. With an Ayuk as the second, potentially third option in San Francisco. Potent offense, of course, but I'd rather go with Whittington because the matchup's great. I mean, Stafford is playing today, which is obviously like 100% necessary for any receiver upside. And Whittington is basically, it's him, Tutu Atwell, and, a collection of guys that aren't very good. Demarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson. It's him and Tutu Atwell, basically. So I would go with Whittington here. And heard Kupp maybe traded. I heard the same thing. It's crazy. Like, if, again, I want to pull myself back from a fantasy perspective just for a second. On an NFL level, like, it makes a lot of sense for the Rams to do this type of deal. Like, send Kupp away for draft capital. Because, I mean, realistically, like, what are they going to do this year, right? Like, they're not competing for anything. What are they, 1-4 or something like that? And it's like, your quarterback's getting old. Or he is not getting old. He's old. I mean, he's old. So it makes a lot of NFL sense for them to do that and rebuild. The question ultimately becomes like, Kupp. I mean, my problem with Kupp, I've laid it out. The reason I left him out of the top 30 wide receivers rest of season a couple weeks ago is because I don't trust the fact that, like, even when he comes back, which should be week 8 by all accounts that I'm reading, even when he does, it's like, what are the chances of re-injury? I read the chances of re-injury on this one is pretty freaking high. So it's like, this guy has not been healthy the last, since 2021. Since that massive season he had, which was excellent. Nobody could take it away from him. He won me championships that year. But, I mean, I just think it's kind of looking like Keenan Allen these days, where it's like, if he gets traded, I don't know who's trading for him as the number 1 wide receiver. It's not like the Tyreek trade from years ago. Appreciate the super chat. All right, let's go back up to the top. Foxborough News, what's going on? Morning. 16-man half PPR. I got Murray to golf. I'm sure you meant Goff. And flex help, I got Harrison Jr. or Eckler. First off, I just want to say I've gotten a couple questions about this. Like, when I do the must start and sit videos and I go deep on some of those deeper plays, some people will be like, who plays in a 14, 16 man league? It's like, people do. Like, that's why we do this. For people like Foxborough News. I got you, man. Because I get it. It's tough out there in those deep leagues. Murray and Goff. Yeah, I would go with Kyler. Kyler over Goff. Goff is a sit for me this week. He really is. Like, I don't trust Kyler, or I don't trust Goff versus the Vikings defense. They're coming off a bye. Brian Flores has been excellent. I think the Vikings are going to win today, and I think that the Lions may struggle offensively. Like, I think the Lions will definitely put up points because they're the Lions, but I think that they're going to struggle, and I think Goff may throw a pick or two. Like, it's not going to look as flawless as it did against Dallas, that's for sure. And then Harrison Jr. or Eckler, yeah, I'd go Harrison Jr. for sure. I've gotten a lot of questions about Marv, actually. It's interesting. Marv has been, people aren't happy with him, and I get it. Like, he hasn't been very good. You take out that 2-game stretch, like, he's been pretty mid. Pretty disappointing, actually, not just mid. I'm just not going to go against Marv when I'm talking about, a player like Brian Robinson who's expected to play today. I do think has a lot of upside. I really do. So, yeah, I'm just going to – I would personally play Marvin in that situation. Hugo Gauthier was up next. Appreciate the super chat. Whittington with no Kupp or Ladd at the flex. Yeah, I'd go Whittington. Whittington here. Whittington's going to be playable in a lot of different situations here. Like, Whittington has been – let's go to Whittington really quick and look at what he's done without Kupp. Jordan Whittington. So, without Cooper Kupp, which started in week 3, he had 3 targets against the 49ers, 70% or 38% of the snaps. But then week 4 gets 97% of the snaps, and in week 5 he had 92. And in those weeks, 8 targets, 10 targets. And he's actually probably their most talented wide receiver. Tutu is the most consistent. I think if you're in a PPR format, like Tutu Atwell, for those of you who have Tutu Atwell, I think he's a pretty solid play this week, to be honest with you. So I really do think Whittington, against the Raiders defense, like, it makes a lot of sense to be able to play Jordan Whittington. And, with Ladd, I like the matchup too. It makes sense to play Ladd as well this week, but I'm personally going with Whittington because the upside, I think, through the pass is just more so with the Rams than it is with the Chargers. So I'm going Whittington. Appreciate the super chat. Terrence Holmes was up next. Appreciate the super chat. I'm worried about Ladd. I don't know if I should start him for Whittington. Help me. Yeah, same exact thing applies, right? Like, I'm not as worried about Ladd, to be honest with you. Like, on a different note, I actually think Ladd is on the up. Like, I think Ladd is definitely trending up. Last week, with the Chargers, they played the Broncos. Let's keep in mind, like, that's not an easy defense. Even if you're not going up against Pat Surtain, the Broncos defense is legit. I mean, that defense is legit. So, like, you can't, I don't look at last week versus the Broncos and fear Ladd McConkey. I think he's on the upward trend. Like, let's go back to Ladd. Ladd McConkey, I think he's going to continue to get better opportunities. I think he's in good shape to become a really good player in fantasy. Like, the past 3 weeks, let's just look at those. Week 3 at Pittsburgh, 6 targets. Week 4 versus Kansas City, 7 targets. Week 6 versus Denver, 8 targets. Like, 8 targets is a legit number. Again, Denver's defense is really, really good. Kansas City's defense is pretty good. And he got a touchdown that week. Now, Ladd is not ever going to be like a 25 to 30 point ceiling guy. That's just not Ladd McConkey's DNA. And it's also just not what the Chargers do offensively, right? So you can't look at him as like a big play upside guy. Whittington, I do think he has more upside than Ladd does. I think he has more upside. I think he could probably hit like a 20-point week this week if he hits the ceiling that he has. Whittington, I think, has the higher ceiling than Ladd does. So yeah, I like playing Whittington this week. I'd play him over Ladd. Appreciate the super chat. Alexis Bolanos, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Morning, Ryan. I dropped a question in the comments. Yeah, just so y'all know, don't spam the chat. It just makes everybody else annoyed with you. The best way to get your question answered immediately is to do super chat. If you spam me, I'm just gonna ignore you, and you're just gonna annoy me and everybody else. Okay, let's find Alexis Bolanos. Do you think it's worth to trade Monty for Lamb? My running backs are Monty, Hunt, Najee, and Singletary, and Sharp. My wide receivers are Neighbors, Douglas, Olave. I got Pacheco on IR. I got Myers, too. So you've got Monty, Hunt, Najee, Singletary. So if you lose Monty, you've got Kareem Hunt, Najee, whoever the Chiefs running back is, which I do believe it could very well be Kareem Hunt the entire time. You've got Kareem Hunt, Najee Harris, a losing volume Singletary, and at wide receiver, you're stacked. I mean, you've already got players at wide receiver. You've obviously got Neighbors. Olave is, you could use help for sure. I think Monty is super solid though. Like CD definitely, we haven't seen the ceiling yet from CD, which is unfortunate because he does have the ceiling. But, I mean, the way he's looking this year, I'll be honest, like I really am super disappointed with like how he looks just at an actual visual level when you watch CeeDee Lamb. He just doesn't look like the same player. He looks like he's not trying. I mean, he just got paid a big amount of money. It's hard to put yourself in his mindset because nobody has been paid $150 million like he has, right? So it's hard to put yourself in that mindset, but you'd wish that he was playing with the same fire that he played last year when he was in search of the contract. I personally, I would probably do it because it makes a lot of roster sense. Like, I have more faith in your running backs, like post Monty. And I do love Monty. I do. Post Monty, you've got Kareem Hunt as a locked and loaded guy. Najee and Singletary, you're going to want to play waivers for sure. Because it's going to be tough for running back. But if you can get Neighbors and CD and then, put in either Olave or Demario Douglas in your flex, like, you're going to be in pretty good shape. And especially when Jacoby Myers comes back, like, you'll be in really good shape at wide receiver. So I think I would personally do that move myself if it was me. Appreciate the super chat, Alexis. Good to see you in here. Terrence Holmes, thanks. LOL. No problem. I appreciate you. Appreciate you being in here today. David Villarreal, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Addison or Cooper started Hill and Reed. Addison, Harrison, or Cooper. Hill and Reed as your starters. I mean, honestly, I can't endorse starting Tyreek Hill when you've got options like this. Reed is a locked and loaded guy. Always for me. On my channel, you're always going to see me saying Jaden Reed is not going on my bench, personally. For me personally, if it was me, I would be playing Marvin Harrison, and I would be playing Jordan Addison. Yeah. I mean, I'd be playing Marv, Jordan Addison, and Jaden Reed. That's what I would do personally. Like, listen, Tyreek Hill, again, I'm so over it. Because it's just like, wake me up whenever Tua gets back. I don't have interest in Dolphins players screwing me over. Like, I drafted so many Dolphins in redraft leagues and in best ball leagues, and like, they can't do anything without Tua. Bye week doesn't change that. It just doesn't. You can't all of a sudden make Tyler Huntley a good quarterback or Skylar Thompson a good quarterback. And, what's the most disappointing about it is, like, I used to think Mike McDaniel was a really smart offensive coach. I think he is to a point, but I think he's dealing with a lot. And he's been really disappointing throughout this whole thing. Like, he just doesn't look like a very good coach. So I'm just kind of sick of it. And I would personally rather just go with Addison, Harrison, and Reed, because Addison, the matchup's great today. Cooper, I'm playing Cooper in the Dynasty League, so I'm not opposed to it, but I'd rather play those other options because I think they're higher upside. Appreciate the super chat, David. Next up was Terrence Holmes. What's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Okay, so I can only start one wide receiver. Who are you choosing, Ladd or Deontay Johnson? Thanks for the help, bro. Well, appreciate you being here. Ladd or Deontay? Definitely Deontay. Yeah, if Deontay plays, definitely Deontay. Deontay's a locked and loaded starter. Let's see what his story is, though. Deontay Johnson. Let's click on this one. He's expected to play. So, obviously, Ladd is playing Monday night. So, yeah, you're going to have time. It's not like you have to, like, roll the dice on this one and take a gamble. Ladd's playing Monday night. Deontay's playing at 3 o'clock Central Time today. So, you should be totally fine with playing Deontay Johnson. Like, Deontay Johnson, the matchup versus the Commanders, I love, first of all. Second of all, like, he's a locked and loaded guy in most leagues because he's getting peppered with targets. Like, he's their target guy. Leggett is quickly becoming their big play guy, right? So Deontay Johnson is in my lineup between these two 9 times, 100, actually 10 times out of 10. Because Ladd, again, I just don't think Ladd has the upside that Deontay does at this level. So I'm going with Deontay. Appreciate the super chat. Deontay 100. What's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Full PPR. Who are you starting? Downs, Juju, or Tyrone Tracy? Full PPR. Obviously, Downs is the enticing one because Downs has been really good. But I really am worried about, like, what is he going to do with freaking Anthony Richardson? Anthony Richardson is completing less than, like, 50% of his throws, guys. Like, I don't think you guys realize how bad that is. Anthony Richardson this year, he's completing 50% of his throws. Guys, that is so horrible. You look at a rookie, Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is completing like 75% of his throws. It's never been easier to complete more than 60% of your passes. And just like 10 years ago, guys, like, it was a pretty rare thing that guys were having like 66, 67% completion percentages. Like, that was a really rare occurrence. It's now easier than ever, and these coaches are scheming up a lot of these easy plays. Richardson can't even hit that. Like, it's bad. You know, so I don't trust Downs. I don't trust any of them with Anthony Richardson. It just isn't a good situation with Anthony Richardson. So, like, for me personally, I'm going with Juju. Juju makes a ton of sense today. As long as he plays, you know, Juju Smith-Schuster, he's questionable. Let's see if Sports Illustrated, this garbage website, can tell us anything. He's expected to play versus the 49ers. So, yeah, I'm going with Juju. Juju just is filling that. Juju is filling that role as Rashee Rice, just not as great, right? Like, but if Juju can get in the end zone on like 8 targets, like, that's a pretty great week, considering he's got Patrick Mahomes throwing in the ball. So yeah, I'm playing Juju out of this group. Appreciate the super chat. Next up was what's going on? Appreciate the super chat, very generous super chat. 1 and 5 need to win out to make the playoffs most likely. Anything glaring that you would address? Quarterbacks Stroud, Williams, Caleb Williams. Running backs are Walker, Kyron, Bigsby, Corum. Wide receivers Chase, Adams, Brian Thomas Jr., J-Mo, Douglas, and Waddle. First of all, I want to say this. The fact that you are still playing and trying to win at 1 and 5, I commend you for doing that, because there's a lot of people who quit when they get down to 1 and 5, 1 and 4. You know, there's a lot of people that just throw in the towel, right? And it's easy to do that, but I've won championships when I was like 1 and 4, 2 and 4. You know, I've done it before. I don't know if I've ever overcome 1 and 5, but you can definitely do it. So I'm in on helping you for sure. So your quarterbacks, first of all, I like your quarterbacks. Like, I don't see any need to do anything. Looking at your roster as a whole, you've got 2 number 1 running backs, depending on, you know, depending on if Walker plays. I mean, Walker has been a little bit in and out and a little hard to trust. Your receivers are really good. To me, here's what I would do personally. Like, I understand you have Blake Corum as a handcuff to to Kyron Williams. It's not a bad idea. I would much rather get Charbonnet than Blake Corum. Like, that makes way more sense to me to get Charbonnet, because, like I said, you know, he's been in and out of the lineup, Kenneth has, and Kyron's been really solid this year. So, like, you have to take shots at this point, right? Kyron could theoretically get injured at any time, but in your position, you've got to take some shots. So if it was me personally, I would be trying to do something like this. Like, your wide receivers are really strong. You've got 4 startable options every single week. If it was me, I would try to get somebody like a Jalen Waddle. Entice somebody with the excitement of Tua coming back. And send over an offer along the lines of, like, you could use another running back potentially, or I don't know what your tight end situation is. I'll say your tight end situation. I'm looking at your roster. I'm like, I don't know how you're 1 and 5, to be honest with you. Like, you've got a strong roster. You've got a really strong roster. But to me personally, like, I'd be trying to look to get somebody like a Jalen Waddle and sending away a Jalen Waddle for somebody in exchange for like a Chase Brown or like a Josh Jacobs. Like, that makes a lot of sense to me, because and in addition, whoever has Zach Charbonnet, I think you should be going after like their RB2 and then trying to get Zach Charbonnet in addition to it. Like, that's personally what I'd be trying to do, because I think it makes more sense to have somebody like a Charbonnet than it does with Corum. Corum, like, we don't know if he even takes over the full workload for Kyron if he goes down. We know Charbonnet is the guy. We know that for a fact. So I would just try to get in a very sneaky trade idea, which would be to trade for Zach Charbonnet, but he's the throw-in, like, sweetened appetizer piece of the meal. The meal should be getting a Josh Jacobs, a Chase Brown. The appetizer should be a Zach Charbonnet, or the dessert, whatever you prefer, right? So that's what I would personally do with your team. But let's get you some more wins. I think, honestly, I'm blown away that you're 1-5, to be honest with you. Appreciate the super chat, though. Let's get you a win today. Richard Stewart, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Start one. Cooper, Najee, Dobbs, maybe Kupp. Well, Kupp's not going to play. I read today that he's not expected to play. I read that this is where my issues with Cooper Kupp come out. I read today that if he plays today, he's at high injury risk of re-injury, and it's like, does it make a difference? Like whether he plays today or next week? Like honestly, it doesn't. Maybe it makes a little bit of a difference. Again, not a doctor here. Don't think you're getting medical facts from me. It's not happening. Cooper, Najee, Dobbs, and Kupp. Kupp's not playing today, so you can't play him. Out of this group, I'm playing Amari Cooper. Amari just makes a lot of sense to be really good right away. Not really good. Like I think his upside is more down the line. It's hard to come into a new situation like midweek because that's essentially what happened with both him and Devontae Adams. I'm big on Devontae this week. I've made that very public. Amari, like, I'm not bad on him. Like, I'm playing to Amari Cooper in a dynasty league, and the guy I would play second would be Romeo Dobbs, but I'm going to play Amari Cooper personally because the matchup versus Tennessee is really good. I think L'Jarius Sneed is not playing. That's their lockdown corner in Tennessee, former Chief, who was really good for them too. I'm going to play Amari Cooper. That's what I would do. Appreciate the super chat. Next up was Ismail. What's going on? Appreciate the super chat. 12-man PPR. Chose 2-1 for my RB2 and flex. 2-1 for my RB2 and flex. Gotcha. I can't decide who to play. Tyreek, Wandale, Chase Brown, Jordan Mason, Connor. I'm playing London and Godwin. Well, first of all, your two wide receivers are top tier. You're in great shape with those guys. At your RB2, I'm playing Jordan Mason because he's playing in a big game. Like Jordan Mason off the injury report, I will tell you this, it makes me nervous a little bit to play Jordan Mason, but to me, realistically, like he has the most upside out of your running backs. Like I think Chase Brown is a pretty strong sit this week. I think it's a tough matchup against the Browns. And James Conner is not a sit. Like he may be my flex option, but Mason to me like makes a lot of sense because, you know, let's say I get it. Like let's address the injury concern. It's a concern to me. Like that dude looked like he couldn't move his arm last week. Like in the second half, he was out there for one carry last week, and he barely was able to move. Like he didn't play another snap after that. So it definitely makes me nervous for sure. But what I'll say about that is this: like if you sit him in fear of re-injury today, and he ends up going off for 20 points, because that's exactly what could happen today. It's a big game, Super Bowl rematch, and it's not only that, they're 3-3. They need to win today to shape the direction of their team. So they have to win. And I'm playing Jordan Mason. I get it. You're nervous about Mason. I am too. But realistically, like, I cannot come on here and tell my audience that he's a sit, because he offers a ton of upside in this matchup. And if he goes off on your bench, like, it's going to make us all feel bad, right? And I get it. It's not like Chase Brown is some, like big play you're missing out on this week. This is a tough matchup for Chase Brown. James Conner is going to end up being my flex out of this group, because James Conner in the matchup versus the Chargers, I don't particularly love it, but James Conner is obviously tons of upside. To me, it makes a lot of sense to play James Conner with Jordan Mason, because I think they offset each other. Like if Mason goes down, I think Conner can hit the ceiling, but I think they both can hit the ceiling, so I'm playing both of those guys right here. Personally, that's me. I'm going to play Jordan Mason. I'm going to play James Conner. I get the fear of Jordan Mason for sure, but I'm just telling you this, like, I'm not going to sit him out of fear of re-injury personally, because this upside provides this matchup provides upside. It's a must-win game. They're 3-3, and it's the Super Bowl rematch. Like, they want to win this game, and Jordan Mason is going to play, and The only thing that can keep him out is re-injury, which is possible, but I'm playing Jordan Mason personally. That's just me. Go with your gut if you don't feel good about playing Jordan Mason, but just understand from my end, like, it's a strong Jordan Mason play for me with James Conner. Appreciate the super chat. Nate Dogg, what's going on, my man? Good to see you in here. Let's try to get to your question earlier. Chase Brown or Hill? Tyreek Hill or Chase Brown? Ooh, oh, man. I feel like we've talked about it this week. It's tough. It really is tough, man. Like, I really do think that Chase Brown is a really tough sell for me to play this week, to be honest with you. It's a really tough play to play Chase Brown. It's always tough to play Tyreek, though. I'm probably going to go with Tyreek Hill. I really don't like this matchup for Chase Brown. The more and more the days have gone by, like, I'm not a big fan of this matchup, to be honest with you. I think the Browns are going to struggle today. Or the Bengals will struggle today. I personally think they will. So I'm a little lower on Chase Brown than I would like to be. You know, I would like to be much higher on Chase Brown this week because, like, realistically, like, he's done. He's the running back one over there, and he's done really well. Tyreek, like, the matchup is theoretically really good against the Colts. Again, what he needs to hit on is a big play, and I think that they're both, like, putting them both in this situation, Chase Brown is a tough matchup. Tyreek's got the matchup, but obviously Tyreek's quarterback sucks, and Chase Brown, they're both dependent on big play to me. So I'd rather just take the shot on Tyreek Hill personally. I'd go with Tyreek. Appreciate the super chat, Nate Dogg. Always good to talk to you. Charlie Lewis, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Whittington or Juju? Full PPR. Thanks, man. That's a tough one. Yeah, that's a really good question. They're kind of close to each other, to be honest with you. Like, I think that Whittington's going to be a good play this week. But Juju definitely makes a ton of sense. Like I said, Juju makes a lot of sense. So, man, Whittington's got the matchup for sure on his side. And Juju's a good play, man. He really is. I feel like 2019, 2018, we're talking about Juju Smith-Schuster as like a really top tier play. Like that's kind of how I feel. Juju or Whittington? Man, that's a question I haven't interacted with yet, so I'm like sitting here pondering it. Whittington's got the matchup for sure. Juju has the quarterback upside, but Stafford's not bad either. You know, my problem with Whittington this week is that Whittington is in a situation where this team spreads the ball out. Like, there's going to be touches for Tutu. There's going to be some touches for Demarcus Robinson, or at least they'll try to. Like, and there will be a couple touches for Parkinson. The reality with Kansas City is, like, they're so depleted. All they've really got is Juju, Worthy, and Travis Kelce. Like, that's all they really realistically have. And they're so methodical with who they put the ball in the hands of. And the reality is, like, Juju, based on that week 5 game against New Orleans, like, if you watch that game, he was so clearly their number one, like, target, filling that Rashee Rice role in a big way. So, yeah, it makes sense personally for me to play Juju. That's what I would do. I would play Juju. Appreciate the super chat, but they're both good plays, I will say that. Laughing Duck, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Addison, Ayuk, Chase Brown for my last flex spot. PPR. Addison, Ayuk, or Chase Brown? Not Chase Brown, because these other two plays are strong. Like, these are strong options here. Ayuk and Addison are both really strong plays. For some reason, I can't wrap my arms around Addison. For some reason. Addison is kind of like, it's so close to Jalen Waddle sometimes, where it's like he's not going to receive like 6 or 7 targets in a game. Like, he's going to get like 4 or 5 targets, and he's so efficient on what he does. Now, you could argue with that with Ayuk as well. Ayuk it just feels like the 49ers are going to pull out all the stops today. Like, I really, truly believe that. They're going to pull out all the stops today. It's going to be a great game to watch. I think that the 49ers are going to pull out all the stops. And Ayuk is going to get more involved. I'm going to go with Ayuk. This is a gut call, to be honest with you. They're close enough to each other to where I don't have like a numbers-based logical answer for you on who I would prefer to play. This is a gut call right here on me. I am just leaning towards Ayuk personally because I think the importance for this 49ers team in this matchup is so massive that Ayuk is just going to be more involved than he was last week. So I'm going gut call here, and I'm playing Ayuk personally. But just so you know, if you rather play Addison, I don't have a problem with it. My gut is telling me, Ayuk, what is your gut telling you? Mine's telling me Ayuk. Appreciate the super chat. Deck, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. PPR, Irving or Chubb, Dell or Marvin Harrison Jr.? Bucky is a strong sit, but so is Chubb, honestly. Like, Chubb is a rough play. You know, I guess I would go with Bucky. Let me see. What's the update with Rachaad White? Rachaad White, he's listed as questionable. What can we get on Rachaad White? He was a full participant on Saturday in practice. So he's probably going to play. Oh, that makes it worse. It really does. Three-headed monster. Bucky is my preferred option, but man, it's rough out there to play. I really do not want to play Rachaad White. I don't want to play Chubb either, though, man. Like, I think I'd go with the matchup and go with Chubb. Yeah, it sucks because I think Bucky obviously is like, he's not coming off a gruesome knee injury like Chubb. But with Chubb, like, the matchup works. And realistically, like, they may say that they want to utilize, like, multiple running backs in this game. But the reality is, like, if Chubb is ready to go, he's just so much better than all the other guys. Pierre Strong, Deonta Foreman, like, he's just better. So I would go with Chubb. It's a tough one, but I'm gonna lean Chubb because the matchup against the Bengals is good. It works. Dell or Marvin Harrison, they're both good plays. I really like both of them, actually. I really like Tank Dell this week. In a high-scoring matchup, Marvin, like I said earlier, I've gotten a lot of questions on Marvin, and it's understandable why, because Marvin has been, again, pretty mid, the past several weeks. And I think mid is probably an understatement. He's been major disappointment. So it makes sense why I'm getting a lot of Marvin questions. I just think against the Chargers this week, it probably is enough to sway me to go with Tank. Because I really do like the matchup against Green Bay. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game. And I'm going to go with Tank Dell in this high upside matchup. Because the Chargers have been keeping games really low scoring. And they've been keeping games really tight. So I'll go with Tank in this game. Higher upside matchup. Higher upside to score. Appreciate the super chat. Rock out, what's going on, man? Appreciate the super chat. Wan'Dale Robinson or risk Ladd to play Monday night? PPR. I'd play Wan'Dale, yeah. Wan'Dale is close enough to Ladd this week to where it doesn't make sense to take the risk. Like, again, if we were talking about Ladd versus like Pierre Strong, for example, like I would take the chance on Ladd. If we were talking about Ladd or, hold on really quick. Did they just score a defensive touchdown? No way. No, they didn't. Yeah, I ultimately just think Wandale's too. Wandale and Wandale and Ladd are too close for me to want to take the risk. Like, it doesn't make sense to take the risk on Ladd when Wandale is going to be a good play today. Like, I really do like the Wandale play in a lot of situations because, you know, Wandale is in good position with Malik Neighbors being back and against the Eagles defense. I think that's a good play. So I would go with Wandale Robinson personally. I don't think there's a need to risk. Appreciate the super chat. Andrew Peritz, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Kraft or Mostert? Happy PPR. Wow, that's a good one. That's a good one. Kraft or Mostert? Man, that's tough. Ugh. Playing a Dolphin is such a disgusting thing to do. I mean, it's so disgusting, guys. Oh my gosh. It's so hard for me to tell you to play Raheem Mostert, especially when Achane's playing today. Oh. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm gonna play Kraft. I can't realistically do it. Raheem Mostert, again, he's in line with every other Dolphin. Without Tua, they just don't have upside. They don't. It's so bad. So I'm gonna go with Kraft. It feels dirty a little bit, but like at the same time, no, I'm not gonna take it. I'm not taking it. We're definitely playing Kraft. Appreciate the super chat. What's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Adams and Waddle for Charbonnet and Pollard from my 1 and 5 team. Oh, good. Yeah, we're back here with the trade ideas. He has Montgomery as well, but probably too rich. Adams and Waddle. See, I'm a little uncomfortable. I'm a little uncomfortable with selling both. I'm a little uncomfortable selling both Adams and Waddle. I'm going to go back up to your team really quick. Give me a minute. So you've got, at wide receiver, you've got Chase, Adams, Brian Thomas Jr., J-Mo, Douglas, and Waddle. Now, for me personally, like, I'd rather... I'd rather get Waddle and pair him with... Because for me personally, like, the only way I'm giving up Adams is if I get a Montgomery in return. Like, I need to get Montgomery if I'm giving up Waddle. So if you want to give up Adams, like, don't be afraid to ask for Montgomery. Adams is going to be really good with Rodgers. Like, I'm not sure. I've teetered with Adams' ranking a little bit. He's like around wide receiver 12, like wide receiver 15 for me. Like, that's kind of his range right now for me personally. So it's not that I don't personally think that Adams is like trash. Like, I would personally need Montgomery. If this is me, I'm asking for Montgomery, and if you don't give me Montgomery with Charbonnet, then I'm out. Like, I'm not doing that trade. If you want to give me Pollard, I would personally rather include if he was trying to give me if he was trying to give me Pollard with Charbonnet, I'm personally rather include Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah. First off, I would go ahead and try to get I would try to get Montgomery out of that Adams deal. That's the first thing I would do. Appreciate the super chat. Let's go back up to the top. We'll go top to bottom until we get super chats. That's the way I do it. Try to answer as many as possible, but of course super chat is the best way to get your question answered. Okay. William Gonzalez, what's going on? Aaron Jones or Achane, full PPR? My dog hears some funny business going on next door, so my dog is barking. I'd go with Aaron Jones. Yeah, Aaron Jones to me is a better play. Achane, again, falls in line with Dolphins picks. I just don't have confidence in Dolphins players right now. It doesn't make sense to me to pick a Dolphin when I've got an Aaron Jones. Like, it just does not make much sense to me. Really quick, let's go through this game. So I had 2 must starts in this game. On the video I just started doing the must start videos. Players I have a lot of conviction on in the week. First guy, Demario Douglas, big womp womp. Major disappointment, because there was upside in this game. There was upside here, man. Hunter Henry has another good game. He should have been my tight end start of the week, not Demario Douglas. Jermichael Hasty at the running back position even had a good game. Hooper did better than Demario Douglas. KJ Osborne was better than Demario Douglas. Very sad. Very sad occurrence. Demario Douglas, I told quite a few people to play this week, and I feel pretty bad about that. Now, conversely, Tank Bigsby was the start of the week. Boom, 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 boom. He was huge today. 26 carries, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Boom. He was massive today. Massive today. Very happy about Tank Bigsby going off. Brian Thomas Jr., I told a lot of people, don't worry about him. Play him today. Don't worry about his last week. He was playing the Bears defense, man. Like, that's just it's like the polar opposite of what they were playing today almost, right? So, yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. goes off, has a good game. Ingram was fine at the tight end position, but the real highlight here was Mr. Tank Bigsby, who I was very happy about calling him a must-start this week. So, just wanted to go through that quick update right there. Daniel Caps, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Need 2, PPR. Monty, Achane, Pollard, Mason. Thank you. Also, you said Pop was hurt, in and out. Yeah, that makes more sense. Still disappointing. Definitely disappointing. So Monty, Achane, Pollard, Mason. In a full PPR format this week, Pollard is in for sure. I think Pollard is a great play. And I called Monty a sit this week. And I think that your options are good enough to where I would still sit him. I'd go with Mason. Again, I just think that with Mason, like, the ultimate fear that people have with Mason right now is that he gets re-injured. I get it. I share the same fear, but I don't let fear dictate my decisions in fantasy. Unless it's, like, purely dumb to, like, make this move. It's not dumb to play Jordan Mason this week. It's not. Again, the matchup versus the Chiefs is there's so much at stake for the 49ers. Like, they will pull out all the stops today. Number one, it's a Super Bowl rematch. There's a lot of pride in this one. The 49ers, they can't stand the Chiefs. Let's get that straight. Number two, they're 3-3. So this game, it totally dictates the direction of what their team is going to look like. Right? Are they going to be below 500 or are they going to be an above 500 team with still some shot at, like, a top 2 seed in the NFC? Like, this is a very important game for the 49ers. And I want options. And Jordan Mason, since he's no injury designation, I've got to play Jordan Mason. I've got to. So I would go with Mason and Pollard. I'm sitting the Dolphin, and I'm sitting Monty, who I think is just in a rough spot this week. I called him a must-sit earlier in the week. I'm going to stick with it. Your options here are really good. Appreciate the super chat. Hey, Zerb, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. PPR, Gibbs or Mason? I'd go with Gibbs. That one's tough. That was tough. They're both really close. That one felt bad coming out. Because I really do think, like, Gibbs has the potential to bust for sure because, again, the matchup's really tough. To me, it makes a lot more sense with Gibbs that he has a better week this week because the pass catching upside. Like, as strong as Minnesota's defense is on the ground, like, the best way to remedy that, especially if you're going up against a strong pass rush, which Minnesota is, the best way to remedy that is to throw the ball to the running back. And I think Gibbs has a lot of targets coming his way this week. I really do. I think Gibbs is in good position this week. You know, Gibbs is there was 2 games where he had 0 targets, which is baffling. But this game against Minnesota, I think it makes a lot of like this is more X's and O's, and I don't want to bore people too much, but it matters. So I'm going to say it. Like, this is, from a schematical standpoint, like Ben Johnson, their offensive coordinator, I think it behooves him to scheme up pass plays and targets for Gibbs this week, because they're going to have so much trouble establishing a solid, consistent run in this game. As good as the Lions' offensive line is, like, Minnesota, this is strength versus strength right here. So, and it's a divisional game, and Minnesota's coming off a bye. So it's not going to be easy for them to establish a consistent run. So it makes more sense, like, as a schemer, like Ben Johnson, for him to scheme plays to Jahmyr Gibbs through the air. That's what I think is going to happen. So I'm going to go with Jahmyr Gibbs over Jordan Mason, because I think the upside with him is higher. And it's not that I want to take the risk on Mason. For example, like, I don't necessarily want to risk losing this game with Mason, but if there is a major difference in upside, I'm going to go with Mason. This week, Gibbs and Mason are really close, so I'd rather play the safer card with Jahmyr Gibbs. I'll go with Jahmyr Gibbs here. Appreciate the super chat. Next up, Tyler Sperry, what's going on? Good to see you in here, man. Mooney or Jacobs? Love or Jalen? Any news on Kupp? First of all, Kupp is not going to play today. Apparently, let me just verify it, but I'm pretty certain he's not playing. Rams not likely to have Kupp, unlikely to play. Everywhere we're seeing is saying that he's not going to play. Steelers have had interest in every single wide receiver. Yeah, whatever. Cooper Kupp's career would go to die if he went to Pittsburgh. We should all, as a collective, anybody who drafted Cooper Kupp, and if you like watching good players play and thrive in offense, you don't want to see them in Pittsburgh. They go to die there. So Kupp's not going to play, so you can't really play him. Mooney or Jacobs? See, to me personally, Mooney was another must play. So I'm 1 for 2 so far on my must starts. Douglas didn't hit, but Tank Bigsby hit in a massive way, as you can see on the screen. Mooney was another one. Again, with Jacobs is in flex territory for me. It's not a must start. The matchup's not great with Houston, but the upside with scoring is definitely there. But, it's an anomaly how he hasn't been able to score touchdowns basically at all. Mooney, it makes a lot of sense this week. Mooney's got the Seahawks on docket. Their defense is crumbling with injuries. And they're humming right now offensively. They've totally hit their stride offensively. Makes a lot of sense to play Mooney. So I'm going to go with Mooney. Love or Jalen? Yeah, I'm going to go with Love. Yeah, I think Jalen's in for a tougher one today. I really do. Like, Jalen is always going to be good in fantasy because he has the rushing floor and the capability. So, like, Jalen is never, like, a must-sit guy. But this week, the Giants' defense is no slouch, man. Even with injuries, they've played pretty well. And it's a divisional matchup. And let's just face it, the Eagles don't look very good right now. They look fine, and they've obviously got playmakers. But Jalen is tossing interceptions. Like, he doesn't look the same. He does not look like the same player. I'd go with Love. Love makes a lot of sense. Love is so high upside, and in this matchup versus Houston, where I think there's going to be tons of points in this game, yeah, I'm going to go with Jordan Love, and I'm going to go with Darnell Mooney. Appreciate the super chat, Tyler. Good to see you. Next up was Terrence Holmes. Appreciate the super chat. Do you think Giants Tyrone Tracy keep it up this week? My steals so far last 2 weeks. Yeah, he's been fantastic. I mean, there's no question about it. He's been excellent. I mean, it's hard to say that he's gonna keep it up. Like, take it easy, buddy. My dog's in here. He had surgery a couple weeks ago. He's still got his big old cone on. Take it easy. Uh, so it's hard to predict that he'll be really good still, like because there's obviously going to be the Singletary effect. Him coming back is a big deal, and we don't know what the workload is going to be. I'll tell you one thing though, like I've been pretty bullish on Tyrone Tracy lately because before the start of the season even happened, I was reading about Tyrone Tracy. He was one of my most drafted players on Underdog, by the way. Like, I think he was in like the top 12 players of mine drafted, and I drafted 90 teams on Underdog this year. The reason why is because I was reading about him all offseason, and I like the player coming out of college. He's older, but he looked really good. Like when he played running back, he switched from receiver to running back. And before the season even started, like the Giants were saying, this guy's really good. Like, he looks really good. The coaches really like him. Like, the players like him. And Devin Singletary, it's not like they gave him some massive deal. And he's not that good. Like, he's just not as good. So, he seized his opportunity, obviously. And with Singletary back, like, even now, Brian Dable, the head coach, has said, yeah, like, he's earned playing time. Like, he's going to get significant playing time, even with Singletary there. And number two, beat reporters for the New York Giants said, yeah, we think that he may have already stolen this job. So I'm relatively bullish on this one because I think that Tracy's going to be the best play, but it may be a Bucky Irving, Rashad White deal where they split. But to me personally, like Tyrone Tracy, I think he has the most consistent, better upside than Singletary at this point. I like Tyrone Tracy quite a bit. Appreciate the super chat. Jeremy Cody, what's going on? You're up next. Appreciate the super chat. Flex Jaden Reed, Zay, or Aaron Jones. All very strong options and good problems to have for sure, but Jaden Reed never goes on my bench, especially in this type of matchup where there's going to be points galore. This matchup against Houston, I think, is going to be very, very score heavy. I really like Jaden Reed today. I don't, like I said, like I've got Jaden Reed in so many leagues. I've got him in Dynasty leagues. I've got him in redraft leagues. I've got him in best ball leagues. Like, I've got Jaden Reed everywhere. And I'm not sitting him. Like, Jaden Reed to me is a must-play guy every week, regardless of matchup, but especially this week where I think the matchup is particularly strong. I'm definitely going to play Jaden Reed. But again, good problems to have. Zay, I think, is going to do well today, too, and I think that Aaron Jones is never a bad play. Probably my weakest option out of those three. But, yeah, Aaron Jones is the weakest out of the three, but I would personally go with Jaden Reed for sure. Appreciate the super chat. All right, we'll go back up to the top, go from top to bottom until we get a super chat. Then that way you get your question answered immediately if you do a super chat. Rochita YT, what's going on? PPR pick 3. Zach Moss, Tracy Jr., Bucky Irving, Ladd McConkey, Ray McLeod, Tutu, or Waddle. I would go with Tutu as one of them because I think Tutu's going to have, like, especially now that Kupp is out, Tutu's going to sustain that role, which is very good in a PPR format. I'm going to go with Tutu for sure. I am going to go with... It makes sense for me to go with Tracy, to be honest with you, in this situation. So I'll go with Tracy. I'll go with Tutu. And I will go with... It's hard to take the shot on Ladd. Let's get an update on Ladd, if we have one. Ladd is questionable. What was his practice like during the week? He was limited on Friday. Limited on Friday. It's hard to know if Ladd's going to play. He was limited all week. It's hard. It's hard to take the shot on Ladd in this situation. but you do have Bucky on Monday night as well. So I think it's probably worth it to wait on the Ladd news. I would go with Tracy, Tutu, and if Ladd plays Ladd, if he doesn't, then you could go with the backup plan and play Bucky Irving. Like, I think technically the Bucks and Ravens game is like, I think it's technically like 20 or 25 minutes before the last Monday night game, but they're so close together. Like, you're gonna see both inactives lists. Like, you're gonna be able to see the inactive list to make a determination on this one. So yeah, I'll go with Ladd. Gino or Anthony Richardson? I'll go Gino. Yeah, Anthony Richardson, man. The matchup theoretically is really good. You know, to be honest with you, I've said this a bunch, and it means a lot because you can't forget this. If you haven't drafted Anthony Richardson, if you drafted Anthony Richardson, I hope you understood at the time that this was part of the deal. Like, all of this was going to happen. Not the injury necessarily, but, you know, that's potentially a factor these days with him. But the inconsistent play, the boomer bust nature of Anthony Richardson, that was always going to be part of the deal. Like, that's who he is as a player. So it shouldn't come as a major shock to know that, like, he's not the most consistent. This is a very inexperienced quarterback. So coming off the injury, I would just prefer to wait a week to play him. I would try to play somebody else. So I think Gino's in good position. Like, the Falcons matchup, I think, has a lot of upside. So I would personally go with Gino. Quincy Jones, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Start Kyler, Cousins, or Purdy? Kyler is definitely scary because of the Chargers matchup. Purdy, I've had trouble ranking him this week because I don't know what to expect. Like, they're obviously, their offense is moving right now very well. Purdy had a good week last week, but that was against the Seahawks defense, who, like, not only are the Seahawks weak, but historically Purdy has owned the Seahawks. And I think that the Chiefs off the bye week is a major scare because they're usually really, really good off the bye week with Andy Reid. I'm leaning Cousins. They're all good options, to be honest. They all have upside, but here's the way I look at it. Cousins, to me, has about as high of a floor as both those guys. I think Kyler may have the highest floor, but Kyler also has the lowest they all have the same level of ceiling, in my opinion. I think Kyler probably has the highest by a little bit, but Kyler has the lowest floor. And the matchup versus the Chargers is not one I particularly love. Purdy is hard to predict what happens tonight. I think there definitely could be a couple picks thrown by Purdy tonight. And Cousins is taking on the Seahawks, who just keep getting, they're getting gouged, right? So, like, it makes sense for me to go with Cousins here. I personally would go with Kirk Cousins. But I will say, like, they're all good options here. They're all relatively close to each other for me this week. I am going to go with Cousins because of the ceiling play versus the Seattle Seahawks. Appreciate the super chat, man. Let's go back up to the top. Work our way from top to bottom until we get a super chat to jump the line. Bloated, what's going on? Gibbs or Cook? Vikings fan, so I can't with Gibbs this week. Yeah, I'd go with Cook for sure. Cook's got the easier matchup versus the Titans than Gibbs does versus the Vikings. Cook is going to come back in full force this week. I really don't doubt that. I think it's actually going to be a really run-heavy game script this week for the Bills because they've obviously got a new wide receiver one that they still need to integrate a little bit. Probably don't want to put too much on Amari's plate this week. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Lions, or for the Bills to run the ball this week. I've got to go with James Cook. Next up was Jaslyn Simon. What's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Half PPR flex. Uh, Singletary, Rashad White, or Slayton? I would go with... Ooh, man. That's tough, man. Those are tough options. I'm not going to lie to you. I think I would end up going with... Probably Slayton. I'd probably go with Slayton. Hopefully that they get it. Hoping that they get him involved. Listen, all these guys have low floors. I think the best ceiling play is for a Slayton big play. A big play from Darius Slayton, I think, is your best bet. Because Singletary and Rashad White both coming off injuries, and they're both going to be dealing with split backfields. And they're just, neither of them are that good. I would go with the big play that I could hopefully get from Slayton. That's a tough one, I'll be honest, though. I'll be honest with you. That's a really tough one. Appreciate the super chat. Dizzy B, you said not to start Bigsby over Gibbs or Cook. Yeah. Listen, this is what happens sometimes. You get them right, you get them wrong. Overall, the one thing I will come back with and say is I said he was a must-start this week. And listen, the reason I do those videos is not to tell you guys, yeah, start James Cook, start Saquon Barkley, start Justin Jefferson. It's like, when you come to that video, like you're not looking for me to tell you the obvious answer. You're looking for me to give you some of those guys that are fringe that you need to have conviction on, because I do. Right? So I get it, Dizzy B, but it's hard for me to play him over Gibbs or Cook for sure, because I know the upside is there. Tank is still relatively new revelation. I mean, Tank is still like a revelation that we're kind of figuring out who he is. We're really just finding out that he's a really good player, right? So I'm going to have more conviction on him next week if Etienne's not there. Hopefully they trade the dude. I mean, that's really where I'm at with Etienne is I'm just hoping for everybody's sake, Tank Bigsby gets solid upside. That guy becomes like a running back 2 easily in fantasy. And I think Etienne's best served somewhere else too. Like I really do think someone will get more out of him than Jacksonville is right now. I don't think Etienne's all of a sudden a bad player. I just think it's not working out right now. So, I know. I appreciate the super chat, Dizzy B. It's always good to see you. Always good to talk to you. Pipe down, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. PPR, Tracy or Sermon or Moss? Yeah, I would go with Tracy. All those guys are probably going to have some sort of split. And to me, it's like, listen, Tracy is the best out of the guys dealing with the split backfields. Because, again, I'm relatively bullish on Tyrone Tracy. I really, really am. I think that what I've read, what I've seen with my own eyes, it's not close. He's clearly the best running back of the bunch. And I think that it's very similar to what the Bengals have kind of experienced over the last couple weeks with the Bengals have experienced this over the last several weeks with Zach Moss. Like, they paid Zach Moss the money, so it's like theoretically they figured like they'd come in and play him, right? But it turns out that Chase Brown is just a better player. And now Chase Brown's an RB1. I think we're starting to see that. Sermon has no upside unless he gets a touchdown. It reminds me of Cam Akers. And Moss is he's on the downtrend. I'm going to go with Tyrone Tracy Jr. here. Appreciate the super chat, pipe down. But just so you understand that you're not alone, I'm playing Tyrone Tracy Jr. in a dynasty league and in another redraft league. You're not alone. I have, like I said, relatively bullish on him. And another one from pipe down. Appreciate it. Also pick 2. Pickens, Lazard, Shakir, Pittman, PPR. Pickens, Lazard, Pittman, Shakir. I would go with Shakir. And I know people aren't going to like this. I'm going to go with Lazard over Pittman and Pickens. Pittman literally, like, his upside without Flacco is just like, it's gone. It's out the window. I don't see it. And I think that Pickens didn't have much upside either way, but, Pickens is not going to be better off with Russ. Like, and I don't want to get started on it because it's just going to make me furious as a Steelers fan, but we're sticking with fantasy talk right now. So I'm going to go with Lazard because I'd rather take the shot on the big touchdown. And with Shakir, I think Shakir is going to be pretty good this week. I really do. I think Shakir, especially in a PPR league, I think is a really solid play. So I'd go with Lazard and I'd go with Shakir personally. Appreciate the super chat. Powerhouse, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Odds of Sean Tucker taking the number one role. Stash? I'd say the odds are, to be honest with you, I don't think they're as low as people think. Like, Rachaad White is a failing player. That's 100% true. Everybody understands that. Everybody knows it. Everybody sees it. Rachaad White is a failing player. But, Bucky is not. Bucky has looked pretty good on a per-touch basis this year. And obviously, Sean Tucker just did it for one game. So, the odds of him, if I was dividing it up by out of 100%, I'd say the odds that he takes over the number one role would be 20 to 15%. Pretty low. However, is he a stashable player? For sure. Like, because he's going to have upside in certain weeks, especially the more injuries this team's dealing with. Like, he definitely has upside for sure. It's just not, like, he's obviously not going to start right now. And they're going to ride the hot hand, It's kind of a messy backfield. I really don't appreciate it as a fantasy analyst. I really don't appreciate this Bucs backfield because Rachaad White is clearly the worst, but they seem to have some sort of allegiance to him. Bucky Irving has been consistently the best, and Sean Tucker came out of nowhere and blew the roof off the building last week. So theoretically, like, if it was me as head coach, I would say, listen, Rachaad, like, we'll give you a couple touches per game, but you've got to increase efficiency. We'll give you third down work because you're a good pass catching back. And until you start increasing your rushing efficiency, we're giving the bulk of rushing carries to Bucky and Sean Tucker, but I don't think they're going to do that. So I would put it at like 20 to 15%. And I would say that his stash ability is fine, but there's definitely better stashes out there than Sean Tucker for sure. Appreciate the super chat. AP, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Flex Juju, JMO, or Mason full PPR. Mason matchup is concerning. Need more upside this week. I'm 3-3 and not currently favored to win. Well, just so you know, favorability and projections, they don't mean anything. I'll tell you this from experience. I've been playing fantasy for more than a decade, and ESPN is where I started playing on. ESPN, those people are morons. Like, I'm pretty comfortable saying it. Like, those projections are always wrong. And it's hard to make projections, right? It's hard to do this. Like, it's hard to make projections. Well, that's why you shouldn't worry about projections. Like, every week in my dynasty, one of my dynasty leagues, I'm always consistently, like, I would say throughout the first 6 weeks this year, I've been projected to lose in 4 of them. I'm 4-2. So, like, it doesn't really matter. But I just wanted to say that for peace of mind purposes. You need the upside this week. To me, if you want an upside play in PPR, I would say Juju. Like, Mason, again, I've told a lot of people to play Mason this week because I really do think he's a good option. But I would probably go with Juju in this matchup. Like, you want to have an option in this matchup. And Jameson, like, I really like him as a play, but in a full PPR league, he doesn't have, like, the safety of, like, if he doesn't hit a big touchdown play, like, he's hard to rely on in a PPR league. So I would go with Juju here because, again, he's serving that Rashee Rice role in Kansas City right now. And I think that this matchup, like, both teams are going to be putting out their best foot. Juju has been good. So I'm going to go with Juju here. And if Juju, by some surprise, is surprise inactive, then you go with Mason, which I think is a really good play too. I would play both them over JMO for sure. But I'm going to go with Juju if Juju plays. Appreciate the super chat. Let's get you a win today. Next up was Premium UTA, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Lad or Amari full PPR. Already have AJ Brown in. I would go with Amari. Yeah, Amari and Lad again are they're relatively close in my rankings this week. So I'd rather just not take the shot on Lad because Amari's playing today and Lad is playing tomorrow night. And you can't, we don't know what Lad's story is. So I'm going to go with Amari. Avoid the headache of having to try to do a last-second scramble replace if Lad doesn't play. When you've got a guy that I think Amari is they're very, very close to my rankings. I actually prefer Amari either way. So I would go with Amari Cooper. Appreciate the super chat. We'll get through a couple more, and then we're going to watch some football today, guys. King Autumn, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Josh Downs or Njoku? It may surprise people. I'm going to go with Njoku personally. I just don't. These Colts receivers. It reminds me. It's like a similar feeling of what I feel like with the Dolphins without Tua. Like these Colts players are just they're in rough shape without Tua. They just are. It's not good. So yeah, I'd go with Njoku personally. Njoku over Downs is the move I would make. I think Njoku is really the best case for both these guys is 6 short targets. And I think Njoku, the one thing Deshaun can do is he can actually throw to Njoku. He did it last year a couple times, and obviously he did it last week. So without Amari there, and he's the clear number 1, I'd go with Njoku. Appreciate the super chat. Corey Wood, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Need 2, full PPR. Njoku, Tracy Jr., Irving, or Pickens? Need 2. We're going to go with Tracy Jr., and we are going to go with... We're going to go with Tracy Jr. and we are going to go with... I'd go with Njoku. Irving just is in a tough matchup this week against the Ravens, man. I think he's going to struggle. Feels weird. It feels weird, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to play Tracy Jr. He's in the timeshare along with Bucky, but Tracy's got the better matchup. And I would go with Njoku over Pickens and Irving. Pickens is a must-sit. I'm not telling anybody to play Pickens this week. I'm just not. I'll go with Njoku, and I'll go with Tyrone Tracy. Appreciate the super chat, Corey. V. Cruz, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Wide receiver 2, Devontae Adams, Deontay Johnson, Wan'Dale Robinson. Man. Deontay and Devontae are both plays for me this week. They're both really strong options. I would probably play Deontay since he's got a great matchup. I'd go with Deontay because he's got a great matchup and Devontae's, there's a chance Devontae doesn't have a great game because it's his first game with New York, but I think Devontae's going to be great as well. I would go with Deontay in this one personally. Appreciate the super chat, V. Cruz. Jeremy Cody, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Pittman, Shakir, JSN, flex. Pittman, Shakir, JSN, flex. I would go with JSN. Yeah, I'd personally prefer JSN. JSN, I think he has the best target, most consistent target share of the bunch, and the quarterback, obviously. Gino, I've had my problems with him. I've gone over him, but I would prefer JSN. I think his matchup against Atlanta, I think there's going to be a lot of upside in this matchup. I'd go with JSN. Appreciate the super chat. And then the last one we'll take today, Powerhouse. What's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Chargers defense number 1 next week. Christian Watson thoughts rest of season. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's too early. It's always too early to tell. It's hard for me to get ahead week to week a lot of times because it's definitely just a week to week thing. Things move so fast, it's hard to keep up with. So I need to keep my head on the swivel on a per week basis. But obviously the Chargers defense, They're in great shape. Who are the Chargers playing next week? Let's take a look. Chargers next week are playing the Saints. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to be up there for sure. I have to look into it. I have a formula with defense that I use. So I'll have to look into my formula and just kind of see what I'm seeing, along with how they look tomorrow night. But, I mean, they're going to be up there for sure. They're no doubt going to be up there. And Christian Watson, my thoughts on him rest of the season. I think that Watson he's in position to be a good play. But I don't think that Christian Watson is someone that I can't trust Christian Watson. I don't think that Christian Watson I can realistically like tell you guys anything different than what I've seen. Like Christian Watson is just what he is. He's a big play threat. 20% of the time, he's going to hit. 80% he won't. I'll tell you this though. I actually picked Christian Watson up on waivers in a dynasty league because it's a more shallow dynasty league. We don't have as many bench spots. I picked him up because I believe I have Jordan Love, first of all, so there's a good stack potential. Second of all, I believe he could give like big play upside towards the end. So like I think he's definitely rosterable, but I don't think he's all of a sudden some revelation. Appreciate the super chat, Powerhouse. You should let me buy one of those hats you give away, Powerhouse says. I'll tell you exactly where to find them. I'll show you really quick. So you go to footballfanalystnetwork.com. Footballfanalystnetwork.com. You go to merch right here. And you've got your dad hat right here, which is what I wear. This one right here. This is it right here. So you can go to footballfanalystnetwork.com, click on this. You go add a cart. And you're good to go, man. So that's where the hats are sold at. But I appreciate the interest. So if you want to go buy one, go ahead. Footballfanalystnetwork.com/merch. That's where you can find the FFN hat. So make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel on the way out, guys. That's all I ask. I appreciate y'all being in here today. Let's win some fantasy lineups. Let's watch some football, enjoy the day, and I'll see you guys tonight. Appreciate the super chats. Appreciate y'all being in here. Let's win.